What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about Digimon story Time Stranger, which is a bit of an odd one that I'm certainly behind on, as this game originally released back in October, actually. However, it is about to get its first DLC here in a couple of days, and so there's been some general renewed interest, but also, basically since this game released, people have been asking me all about it, and I decided, after noticing that there was a demo for it, to just go ahead and take a look at it and share some general thoughts for it, I suppose, because by all accounts this game was very well received, and after honestly just playing the demo I can see why. However, it will conservatively be some time before I ever take a full look at this game. But the reason this game passed me by to begin with, actually, is I assume, at least like a few other people, Digimon is one of those things that I knew existed as a kid but was just kind of to the side. So growing up in the US as a child, Pokemon was really like the big thing when I was a kid. Digimon was its slightly weirder sort of knockoff version as my child brain saw it, and so I just kind of never paid it any mind, and then fast forward a couple decades later, this game is releasing and I'm getting questions about it. So one of the big reasons I never covered this game to begin with is just simply that I know very, very little about Digimon. But that aside, again, this seems like a good game by every other count, so it does have a lot of the hallmarks of like the monster taming genre in general. You know, you'll be gathering up Digimon or your digital monsters to fight battles for you, but in the case of this game, I believe the story is you sort of investigating the end of the world across the real and digital world where these monsters reside. And there's obviously, by the name, of course, going to be some time travel involved there. And while it's a little outside the scope of the demo that I played here, I believe there's also like some exploration and side quests and all sorts of other stuff to get up to once you get into the later parts. But before you can do all that, you have to begin, of course. And you pick between one of the two protagonists you can play as, basically just your standard male or female choice, but apparently, once you get a little further in, you can do things like customize outfits, but in either case, your character works for a company called Adamas, which is meant to be some secret organization tracking down anomalies which, surprise, are typically caused by Digimon and their breakthroughs from the digital world. So one thing that I thought was hilarious right at the beginning of this is you get a little phone call giving you the initial rundown of everything going on, and it's mentioned that this is some like clandestine organization, and yet you're having this conversation about your secret employer very loudly in public. But otherwise, things get underway pretty quick. There's some anomalies. You want to go track them down, see what's going on. And this is going to lead you to picking out your first Digimon. You get a choice of 3, unsurprisingly. But that only lasts for a little bit because as you start fighting other ones and, collecting them, of course, and training them up, things get interesting fast. So a couple things that I like about this system just straight away, especially coming from Pokemon specifically, is that you don't catch these guys so much as you create them. So as you encounter different Digimon, you pick up a scan rate. Once you get a scan rate of 100, you can create a copy of that Digimon. However, you can create a stronger version of it by getting the scan rate up to 200%. And at any point between 100 and 200%, you can create or sort of copy one of these Digimon as a party member that you can then use in battles. I like that just as a sort of catch mechanic. That seems a little easier to keep track of, but it gets even more interesting because a little later in the demo, once you unlock the Digi-Evolution, that's where the system gets especially interesting to me because there are multiple upgrade paths for them typically outside of the really basic ones, and which paths you have access to depend on the stats of the monster that you are trying to evolve, and so this is where Digi-Evolution comes in. It's actually possible to revert the state of these guys back to the previous version, which will let you potentially farm up different stats and stuff to then check out the different sort of progression paths for these individual monsters. Straight away, I just thought that was really cool. It's also nice that I'm honestly not really familiar with any of these designs, so they're all kind of fresh and interesting to me outside of like 1 or 2 very basic ones that I am familiar with just in passing. However, by and large, completely new. Unsurprisingly, however, it doesn't stop there. All these guys just straight up speak normally. They are able to communicate with humans. I almost said English, but that wouldn't make any sense in the context of the game itself. But, suffice to say they can talk to people, I guess. They all have personalities. You can interact with them and influence those personalities, which can give them different sort of base personality abilities. You can also, as they level up, learn new abilities, special moves and stuff. There's also like discs you can find to teach them moves. There's a basic type matchup system between vaccine, virus, and data on top of the elemental types, which will see you doing more or less damage to the monsters you attack, unsurprisingly, allowing you to be either underpowered or delivering potentially up to like 3 times normal damage. But another cool thing, speaking of battling these guys, is that it's not one-on-one, it's a 3v3 in most situations. You have your main team, your reserve team, and then all the guys in your backup. There are some other convenience features here as well. Outside of battle, you don't need to go heal these guys or anything, but rather if you stand still, it does it on its own. You can also use them to attack and interact with the world around you, breaking open barriers or even smashing up items to find things inside. My understanding later is they're a little more involved in exploration generally. And I guess broad strokes for me is that it feels like a combination of a few different JRPGs that I've played, and kind of happily, for me at least, it does not really feel like Pokemon much at all, which was nice to see. You always kind of worry with these creature collector things that they're going to be somewhat the same. However, this really does kind of feel like its own thing. Especially when you start looking at like the equipment you can throw on these guys. In combat, you can use an item and attack in the same turn, which is another really great quality of life feature. And I was a little worried, truth be told, that in particular would make the combat feel especially easy. Now, while it didn't come up in the demo much, I believe there's also some like level or RPG system tied to your character as well. Some of the Digi evolutions in particular mention like your agent level. There's a space for agent skills on that page in the menus even, so I'd be curious to see exactly what that is. But another thing about combat that comes up towards the very end are your cross arts. Basically, you can charge a meter as you successfully hit weak points, especially in combat, which will then let you unleash your secret move, which in the demo was just a simple stat buff, but it is implied that there are other moves that you can use with this that will do different things. And I guess, all in all, putting that together into a cohesive bit here at the end, I guess I was just surprised about how much I wound up enjoying this, despite not really knowing much about Digimon at all. It's doing a lot of cool stuff. It's got a lot of fun quality of life things. There's a bit of humor in there. I enjoy seeing all these creature designs that aren't really, things that I'm aware of. The different evolution paths for each individual monster, I think, is a really cool idea. And long story short, I guess if I wasn't so busy at the moment, I could honestly see myself playing through all of this, but I am unfortunately very busy at the moment, and so while it won't be anytime soon, to be sure, if I get a chance next year once this game has all of its DLC released, as it is getting one here in a couple days, but it's also getting 2 more, I believe, sometime probably next year, and once all of that DLC is out, if I can find time next year, I may well jump into this and see about actually playing it in full. That is how much I wound up enjoying just this demo even. So while I can't really speak to the quality of the DLC that's about to drop, I just wanted to pop in and say that after checking out this demo, the people who were asking me to take a look at it were absolutely correct. If you like monster taming, creature collecting type of games, there's a really fun experience in here, surprisingly so even. And as for today, that's pretty much going to do it for this video. Certainly hope you enjoyed it. If you've played any part of this or, completed the game, I'd love to hear about it down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.